Hello and welcome to my first video on this channel, Solo Dad, Amateur Widower. My name is James and I'm raising two beautiful children, a daughter who's just turned 13 and a son who's 11. And I've been doing this now on my own for 3 years. I say on my own, but it's really, I've got a great network of friends and family and fantastic coaches and teachers and all sorts of people in our community that help me along the way, but primarily raising two kids on my own after having lost my amazing wife actually just over 3 years ago to cancer. It was a really very difficult journey through cancer and then post. And I say difficult, but the truth is, and I share this with people that are in my life, and those that know me have heard me say this a lot. My time with my wife and through her battle with cancer was probably the most amazing and most blessed time I'd ever have in my life. It's something I would never ever wish on anybody else. But my God, it was amazing. And through that experience, I got to experience love, fulfillment, joy, as well as fear, anxiety, and tragedy, and all of the full gamut of human emotions. And one of the reasons why I wanted to share or create a channel is to be able to share kind of my learnings, my observations, the things I picked up along the way about a lot of different things, right? And so I'm creating this content as a solo dad, right? Not a single father, right? There's no one taking the kids on the weekends. There's no one taking them on off weeks. It's just me, right? Solo parent. So I'm sharing this as kind of like my observations of life as a solo parent. Some tips that I had to kind of pick up along the way. There may be some of you watching that are in the same shoes that I'm in, right? You may have over time or with a some level of immediacy found yourself in a position where you're now taking care of one, two, three more kids, and you've maybe never had to do it all by yourself before. And so I picked up some stuff, some tricks. I've learned some stuff. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I thought I would just share um, kind of what I've grown into over the last 5 years. And listen, it's not just tips and tricks, and it's not just observations. I want to share with you some of the things I've learned along the way. I want to share with you lessons I've learned about fatherhood, lessons I've learned about service, prioritization, lessons about being a husband, serving your wife, what I picked up and learned from, from a point and perspective of imperfection to getting pretty good at being a good husband. And it just so it all helped that I had an amazing wife who was an amazing mother to the children and set a very high standard. And so this is my first video. I've never done this before, but in talking to friends and family and colleagues over the years, I've really felt kind of a calling to be able to share and to be able to talk and maybe have some laughs. There'll be times when I'm going to when I'll produce videos that are maybe a little bit heavy, right? Maybe they're hard. But then you know what? I'm actually also, what you'll find from me is I'm actually kind of a big moron. I make a lot of stupid mistakes. I laugh at myself a lot. And I'll share those too. I've got two funny kids. Funny stuff happens all the freaking time. And I'm going to share with you guys those examples too. Yeah, I don't think I'll have my kids on camera. They're young and I want to, keep their privacy kind of safe. But, trust me, they'll have their own little way of adding some flavor to what we're doing here. But some initial thoughts I had on content were, hey, listen, packing lunches, getting kids signed up for sporting events. Oh my gosh, you've got your daughter's friends' birthdays coming up. What do you do, right? And there's lots of different ways I like to do things I've kind of come up with over time to one, either just get through the events or kind of win at the events or win at the thing. And so there's a lot of stuff I like to do and maybe you might want to pick up on. some, before my wife got sick and before I lost her, right, we had very defined roles in the house, right? And I was kind of that guy who, that dad who, or that husband who, I worked full time. Now my wife always worked full time too, but worked full time, and we had these kind of, like I said, defined roles. Honey, you take care of everything inside the house. I'll take care of everything outside the house, right? The mowing, the pool, the trimming the hedges, the washing the cars. That was my job. Her job was the inside. And trust me, it wasn't until I started to fill both roles and all of a sudden had the inside and the outside, I realized how unfair that was over the years, right? I sold it to her that, listen, because this is when we first, I live in Northern California, in where it's very temperate and very mild-mannered climate. It gets a little hot in the summertime, but otherwise it's a super easy place to live. We got married when we lived in Pennsylvania. And so I sold her on inside versus outside. I mean, listen, sweetheart, we got acres of lawn to mow. You don't want to be involved in that. We got all these cars that need to be washed. You don't want to be involved in that. And oh my God, the wintertime, when that winter comes, you don't want to be shoveling. Now, I had lived out in Pennsylvania for about a year before we got married. We got married back here in California. She came out and joined me. Now, so I knew really, it wasn't that big of a deal, the snow out in Pennsylvania. We get a couple storms every once in a while out in Philly, and it wasn't going to be that big of a deal. But she signed up for it, and we had an amazing time. And it wasn't, and we had. I don't say we had an amazing time. We had a really great marriage that also experienced probably what a lot of us, a lot of you experience now, right? Or have experienced in your relationships, complacency, right? In every marriage, every family goes through their ups and downs. Um, I'm sure there are some that are just always able to be amazing. And I'm sure there's some that are just always terrible, right? Fortunately, we were never the marriage that was always terrible, right? But we were never the lucky ones. We didn't, there was too much of ego and too much of self involved in us to have that kind of perfect marriage the whole way through. But we had a normal marriage, right? Trust and faithfulness and love and care and all those things. But also, this kind of stuff would happen. But as we progress and into cancer, there's a lot of things we learned and a lot of things that you discover about yourselves, you discover about prioritization, and you discover ways to make a complacent marriage an amazing marriage. And, if depending on how this is received and how folks like what I have to share, there'll be content that'll speak to that. And be mindful that anything I bring to you is always from my perspective, right? It's from the perspective of a guy, right? A widower. So, but that's not my hope isn't that this content isn't just for widowed men, right? I hope that married families and mothers and fathers and divorced folks and just anyone can kind of find something in what I share, have some value in it, and take a little bit of something away from it. And maybe it's a tear at times, maybe it's a laugh, maybe it's an eye roll. So and I'll share a little bit about my personal philosophy and a little bit about me personally, right? So I'm in financial services and do a job that 15-year-old me would have just absolutely not wanted to do, right? But we all do those things that pay the bills and pay the mortgage, and as you progress into adulthood, you wind up being good at things, right? And so I wound up being good at something and made a career out of it. But in my core, right, I always wanted to work with youth and always wanted to work with people in whether it was in ministry or education or teaching. That was always kind of my calling. And so in my youth, I was active in a youth group when I was a younger person, raised a Catholic, confirmed, baptized, and confirmed in the Catholic Church, and had a wonderful experience. And it wasn't until in high school, a very dear friend of mine, a friend of mine still to this day now, over 30 years ago, invited me to a youth group at their non-denominational church, and we went to something called a broom hockey event. And I'll save the details of that moment for another episode, for another video. But suffice to say that in that moment, in that place, I discovered a renewed faith and a renewed life with God. And so in my youth, I was very active in church, very active in youth groups as a participant in youth ministry. And then going into college, I wound up getting my degree in history, which took me 6 years to get a 4-year degree because I went 4 years at junior college, goofing around, not sure what I wanted to do before I transferred into a university to finalize my degree. Subsequently went on to grad school and got an MBA from a really good school. But during college here in Northern California, I was involved in youth ministry and led youth groups and was a chaplain in juvenile hall and very much worked on developing kind of my philosophy and my faith and my outlook on life. And one of the things, and this is like, people who know me in my life, and you hopefully will get to know me over time, will know that I'm actually really long-winded. It takes me a long time to get to the point. I duck and weave and tell big stories. So anyway, and you're getting a big story. As I develop this kind of philosophies of life and reflect on life and kind of hone in and I guess the word maybe, curate who it is I want to be and how I want to see the world as a young person. One of those observations I came to in life was a couple things. One, that through the greatest of tragedies and through the greatest of hardship, through the most difficult situations and through the most raw of tears, God can be glorified. And there's a greater good that can be served. There's a beauty in this life. There's a beauty in creation. And in every tragedy, there can be heroism, there can be love, there can be sacrifice, there can be expressions of grief that are a beautiful reminder of love, right? And so that was something I just kind of came to when I was a young person. And the other thing was happy is a choice, right? And there's another story on the moment in time I realized happy is a choice. And so I share that with you to say that what I went through, what my wife went through, what our family has gone through, right? My children, who are again a daughter who's 13 and a son 11, they lost their mother at the ages of 10 and 8, right? Very hard time. My mother-in-law and father-in-law and brother-in-law, my mom and dad, my sister, we lost our wife, our mother, our daughter, our daughter-in-law, our sister-in-law, our sister, someone so amazing and so mighty, right? And one of the things I realized is in life, the principle I talked about before, that in every tragedy, there's glory. In every tragedy, there can be a joy. In every tragedy, in every heartache, there can be a purpose and a greater purpose. The problem with having those principles is that sometimes those principles are tested. And so when my wife became ill, and it was within a couple of days, we realized this was not your average everyday cancer, and we were told this was bad. And so we were faced very quickly with something very severe and something very difficult. And I was faced personally with something very fundamental. It was the testing of belief, the testing of philosophy. Now, my faith never wavered. In fact, that experience, my wife's illness, strengthened my faith, and it strengthened hers, and it strengthened our marriage, and it strengthened everything about who we were as people. And it was just through that relationship with God and the leaning in to our scripture, the Bible, to our faith, to prayer, to each other, that made our time together so tremendously blessed. When I say what was challenged was challenged the philosophy that in all tragedy there's glory, in all tragedy there's a lesson, in all tragedy there is a purpose. I realized you can't hold these ideals, you can't hold these values untested. And I was being tested, and this was a test. And so, going full circle to why this channel, why the chance to talk, it's because I believe in my wife's illness and her journey and our journey together and the lessons we learned, that there is a purpose to be served. There's a glory to be given, and there's a lesson to be walk away from, an enlightenment to have, and it was a touching experience. And in sharing my experience when my wife was alive and then at her passing, I had a chance to and feedback from people, realize that lives were touched by her journey. Lives were touched by her strength. Lives were touched by, and this is where this is nothing about me or anything like that, or any sort of gifts I have. It's nothing like that. But come to find out, lives were touched by the way that I managed through this. And it wasn't my intention. My intention in doing what I've done, whether it was taking care of my wife and kids when she was sick or doing what I'm doing now, it was never for any sort of recognition. It was just making a choice to do what is right, making a choice to be the best I can be for the children, for my wife, deciding to have purpose and to living with honor and integrity. And so got some feedback that the way that I approached this was well received, and it helped folks. The way that my wife managed through her illness and fought and encouraged people, it touched people. I've been told that the way my children have navigated this life absent their mother has touched people. And so this is not a series of me in which you're going to learn from my knowledge or my wisdom or because I'm so amazing. The truth of the matter is I'm kind of a schmuck, right? I'm kind of a guy who just found himself in a situation, and there's nothing special about me. I say there's nothing special about me kind of loaded, right? Because there is something special about me. I am a child of God. And that does, and why I say I'm not special, even though I say I'm a child of God, is because I'm not special and because we are all children of God. We are all capable of tremendous strength. We're all capable of tremendous resilience. We're all capable of choosing joy. We're all capable of choosing happy. And in the difficult situations, we're all capable of finding ourselves in a position to thrive in the worst of situations. And so in cancer and in passing and in solo parenting and widowhood, the choice is to thrive. And maybe from some of what I have to share, you'll pick up some stuff and go, hey, listen, I kind of like that. That kind of makes sense. Maybe, and this will be demonstrated in comments and viewership and subscribers, that maybe I'm actually kind of an idiot. I don't know what I'm talking about, and you're going to let me know real quick. I will tell you, truth be told, I think I'm right. I think I'm the smartest guy in the room. I think when I go into a situation, I'm 100% convinced that my way is the right way. And as it turns out, it's usually not. So I get feedback all the time. And, I've got these two amazing children who are world-class critics and professional feedback deliverers. And they've actually gotten really good at delivering feedback in a way that's very, very tender and very, very helpful. So I've learned that, I'm someone who tries things and listens and will come up with things and then come to find out that it's just absolute amateur hour. And so, solo dad, amateur widower. And that's kind of where I'm working through life. And maybe, one of my best friends, his dad used to say, that has an expression. He taught to us in Sunday school years and years ago. And the expression is, and it's biblical. This is also where I'm not that perfect person. I don't actually remember what the verse was. I'll look it up later. The wise man learns from the mistakes of others. The fool learns from his own mistakes, and the idiot never learns at all. And so here is a solo dad, amateur widower, guy, raises some kids, having a full-time job with a beagle and a house and mowing lawns and doing laundry and dishes and all the things that we got to do when we're on our own. I made mistakes. I'm going to share with you my mistakes. I'm going to share with you some of my wins, and hopefully at the end of this, you all get to be the wise person, right? Learning from my mistakes rather than the fool like me, learning on my own. So with that, I do hope you stick around. I do hope that this is interesting to you, and I do hope that you follow, that you like, you subscribe, you tell your friends, you share, you comment, and you provide all the feedback. And I hope that you stay tuned and wait on for the next episode. All right? With all of that, all my prayers, all my blessings, all my gratitude for you watching this far. I hope everyone has a great day. Once again, my name is James, and solo dad, amateur widower. All right. Have a good one.